Valheim, the newest early access survival game to hit Steam that has you navigate in a procedurally generated Norse world, slaying beasts, building forts, and travelling the seas at blistering speeds.
Max speed ahead.
Aye.
Okay, so maybe not blistering speeds. To say this game came out of nowhere would be an understatement. I hadn't seen any trailers or even my favourite gaming YouTubers like Will Smith cover it. I just jumped on Steam one day and what do you know? An early access survival game is at the top of best selling, which in itself is surprising, but also having an overwhelmingly positive review score on Steam, now that was odd. I knew something was wrong. An early access survival game that's positively received, that's just no right. And what do you know? I was right. I was completely misled. The insane number of bugs and poor game design was nowhere to be seen. I bought an early access survival game, and with that title alone, I expect my experience to be riddled with bugs, poor game design, and unpolished, well, everything. But these motherfuckers had the audacity to sell me a working game, which is pretty great by the way. Before I begin, I should state that I typically really enjoy survival games like 7 Days to Die, Reign of Kings, Rust, and even DayZ, because despite their jank, they provide unique experiences and allow for an insane amount of player freedom. Also, name a AAA game where you can catch your mate in a bear trap. But with that out of the way, how is Valheim? Well, it's a pleasant surprise that takes the best aspects from a ton of other survival games, combining and refining those systems into a PvE focused Norse mythology survival game. The game starts off by letting you create your character, which in itself is a bit bare bones, but it doesn't really bother me that much. However, I did realise a real game breaking issue here. You can't give a lassie a fucking mustache! That should be addressed because it's pretty much unplayable. After you've created your magnificent character, you are then flown in, carried by this bird with a human ass, in a short, slightly awkward, yet arousing sequence. After that, you are pretty much left to your own devices. A bird tells you should probably kill these 4 bosses, and that's pretty much you off on your adventure, to do whatever you want in whatever way you choose. A short and sweet setup for the game, which is all it needed to be. So what are you going to be doing in the world of Valheim? Well, you're going to be gathering resources to build bases, crafting tools and weapons to gather even better resources, and then take on harder enemies, which is a familiar gameplay loop to anyone who's played a survival game. On top of that, you're going to be preparing for the boss fights, which when defeated bring new elements to the game like new crafting options or the ability to get into different areas, and of course there's your general exploration with dungeons and stuff like Draugr villages to find if you're brave enough. Valheim can be brutal, riddled with difficult enemies like Draugrs, skeletons, demented trees, and, well, trees in general, because the trees in this game might as well be fucking nukes.
Is that what you did? Yes!
Forget Ornstein and Smough, Pine and Oak would fuck them up. The game has a Souls-like combat system with an emphasis on stamina, telegraphed attacks, and of course high damage. Enemies in the first area are typically pretty easy, allowing you to settle into the game, learning the systems before you're properly tested. So it is a major shock when you accidentally stumble into the wrong area and you've got half a Mordor chasing you and a Dementor, I guess. Why not? For the genre, the combat is pretty good, adding strategy and skill to the combat, which is something that typically isn't seen in similar games. It's not perfect and it can be damn annoying at points, but most importantly, fights are engaging and kills are rewarding, making the combat for the most part a pretty enjoyable experience. Although the game is brutal in terms of combat, other aspects like your typical survival elements are comparatively lenient, as you don't need water and you don't need to constantly drown your character in food just to stay alive. Food in this game instead determines your max health and stamina, with the ability to eat 3 different items at once, providing larger bonuses depending on the food. So yes, to be the very best, you've got to be a fat mess. I just can't tell you how refreshing and good it is not having to constantly ram water and food down your throat like you've got a battalion of tapeworms living up your arse. Gathering resources for the most part is the same as every other survival game. Pick up branches, slap some trees, and caress some rocks. Although I will say gathering wood is actually pretty cool, and that's not just because I'm a timber frame designer. Not only is it a threat to the human race, but the physics attached to the trees actually add some depth to your standard deforestation trip. relationships, making it a fairly engaging experience. The physics have you constantly making sure 1. You don't get slammed by a tree, and 2. How you can cut the trees in the most efficient way as possible, trying to knock trees into each other, maximising your efficiency. A little change that does wonders to what would otherwise be a monotonous task. For everything else though, it is what you'd expect. The base building can be hit and miss. For the most part, I actually like it a lot, as it gives you a lot of options to make fun, unique bases through simple building blocks, which additionally, the building has a very intuitive snapping system, making it pretty easy to learn, which means you can build your castle in next to no time.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Oh la la. Whoa, whoa, whoa. King in the castle, king in the castle.
The building also has a gravity-like system that's not completely how you'd expect it to work, but it does mean you're going to have to make sure your building is properly supported, so 1, it doesn't just collapse, and 2, a troll's just not going to walk right through it. It definitely can be fidgety at times, so if you're a wannabe Frank Gehry, good fucking luck. I can't even make a roof, never mind an apartment complex on Ekis. Exploration is one of Valheim's strongest attributes, with a great variety in locations, like your mother's bedroom. Firstly, the map is absolutely massive, with a ton to discover like dungeons, abandoned buildings, bosses, new biomes, and even Viking graves, which are just screaming to be dug up. But even then, if you get sick of your world, you can always take your character in a brand new world, whilst keeping your stuff from the previous world. So if your world looks like England, there's no need to be sad, just get that world to fuck. Most importantly, the trips you make in this game actually feel like proper adventures, because there's always something new to discover with tons of unique obstacles in your way. Just even getting in your shitty raft to travel a massive body of water is just so satisfying, relaxing, and incredibly immersive. I did say it was relaxing, but I guess that element is kinda thrown out the window when you're jumped by a sea serpent in the middle of a storm. Nothing about that is fucking relaxing. All the exploration aspects are really good and way ahead of most games in the genre. My only gripe is that a lot of the rewards feel really underwhelming most of the time. You're telling me these Vikings went out of the way to bury their best mate with arrows, not even a bow? What the hell is he supposed to do with that in the afterlife? Play darts with Casper the Ghost? But apart from that, the adventures are just really fun, with constant new things to discover, and for the most part every adventure feels unique, filled with a ton of memorable moments. There is also some light skill progression with loads of different stats that you can level up by using that specific stat. Crazy, I know. Use knives, now you're better with knives. Although, I don't think they accounted for you hating your mates, because just attacking your friend with no PvP damage on, you know, a completely normal thing I must add, will level you up. I don't think it's intended, unless you're trying to give us nostalgia for boosting in Modern Warfare 2. Leveling up your stats will just normally increase your efficiency with that stat. Nothing major, but it's a nice reward for your time on top of the standard gameplay loop. Also, by far, the greatest aspect about this game is this. Oh, you can't see it? Look closer. That's no lie. This game is 1 gig. Now that's fucking crazy. In this climate of games where pretty much every game is 50 gig, having a 1 gig game is a bloody blessing. You could either download 1 Call of Duty Modern Warfare or 230 Valheims. Now that's a selling point if I've ever seen one. Overall, I think this is a great survival game that delivers a much more cohesive package than any of its competitors, doing everything it sets out to do pretty damn well. What this team has been able to achieve on what I presume is a very small budget and small team is without a doubt impressive. And even looking back at this review, I reviewed it more as a finished game because I'm so used to games like DayZ barely being any different years later. But this time I'm hopeful that it's going to be a completely different story, purely because of the amount of effort that's already been put on display. It's exciting to see what comes next for this game because after all, it's in early access, and if this is what they're able to deliver day one with a small team, I'm very excited to see what's to come. So where does Valheim sit on the most prestigious yearly ranking system? Well, at the moment it's gotta be decent, but through updates I'm sure this game will ascend easily above decent because no matter how you look at it, this is an impressive game, especially for their first game right at the start of early access, breaking that trend of cash grab early access games.